local assistant state team coordinator for the foundation and also work with the uniformed outreach programs. A little bit about what we're doing today. A couple reminders that we won't be doing any videos. Myself and Chief Ridley will be on the videos, and the rest will be turned off. Everyone's muted as far as the noise. And if you want to ask a question or comment or anything, there's a chat function at the bottom of your screen, and you can hit that and it'll come straight to me and I can relay it to the speaker. We may have to filter questions depending on time and the amount of questions, but send them to me and I can get them rolling. So a little bit about the uniformed outreach programs. When a line of duty death occurs, department personnel go through unique experiences, and they're usually based on the position they're at the time. And only someone that's been in that position, has been through that same type of experience, can relate to that person and know what that experience is like. So based on that, the foundation has developed several outreach programs to assist individuals that go through these experiences. The Incident Commander program, that's the one we're going to talk with Chief Ridley with today. And that's matching an incident commander that's experienced line of duty death, one that experiences one. Similarly, the Chief to Chief network, that's in place now. We're getting ready to revamp that. And then we're getting ready to develop a company officer to company officer program. Again, 3 different unique positions in the organization that experience things in different ways. So we're very fortunate here to have the retired Battalion Chief Chuck Ridley. Chuck was very involved in the development of this program. He came with us to development in Denver last June, I guess it was, in 2019, and then in Tampa to further develop the program and train peers. And he's been involved every step of the way. So Chief Ridley, thank you very much for joining us today. A little bit about Chief Ridley. He was born and raised in Howard County, Maryland. Both his grandfathers were founding members of volunteer fire companies in that community. So as a result, Chuck began his fire service journey as a volunteer with the Lisbon Volunteer Fire Department. In 1982, his passion became his profession when he was hired by Howard County as a career firefighter. And during his 35-plus year career, he served as a firefighter, medic, company officer, and chief officer in a variety of assignments and stations. In addition to assignments in field operations, he served in specialty assignments to include training division, fire marshal's office, and special operations. He retired in October of 2018 as a field battalion chief. In retirement, he continues to serve the department as a civilian inspector in the fire marshal's office. He combines his interest in building construction with his knowledge of fire department operations. So he monitors basically new building construction in order to assure they meet the department's requirements and that pre-fire plans are accurately developed. So again, Chief, thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you.
A little about what we're going to talk about today. Chief Ridley was the incident commander on July 23rd, 2018 for an incident involving a lightning strike. It occurred at approximately 1:20 in the morning and ignited fire within a residence located on Woodscape Drive in Clarksville, Maryland. Smelling smoke, the residents called 911 to report the lightning strike and visible smoke in their home about 1:52 a.m. Howard County Communications Center dispatched a local box alarm to the residents. This consisted of a paramedic ambulance, 2 engines, a tower, and a battalion chief. The residential structure on Woodscape Drive was a uniquely shaped single-family dwelling, a mega mansion spanned approximately 8,400 square feet. In addition, no fire hydrants in that area. Residents did have a swimming pool at the rear of the property. One aspect that really contributed to the complexity of the incident was the huge grade change along the rear of the residence, and we'll look at some pictures and the chief will talk about that. And unfortunately, during this incident, firefighter Nate Flynn was killed in the line of duty. So, Chief, let's get started here, and probably, obviously, definitely the most important thing. Tell us about firefighter Flynn. Who was he? What do you want people to know about him? And during this, I'll put up a picture of firefighter Flynn here for you.
Nate was a fireman, and I only had a relatively short period of time that we worked together. And in that time frame, picture just came up, and I have to smile every time I see Nate smile. But we only worked together for a short period of time, and I got to know the professional Nate, which was Nate the fireman. And just like the picture that you see, it was always that leather helmet, or he had a ball cap, real tight curled ball cap that I don't think I ever saw him without a helmet or ball cap. But it was probably late 2015, early 2016. I was in a transfer meeting, and another battalion chief said, hey, does anybody have room at Station 10? I got Nate Flynn out at Station 5, and he wants out of Station 5, and he wants to go to Station 10, and I don't have room. And I didn't know Nate. I had seen his name on staffing, didn't have a face to go with the name. Like I said, I hadn't worked with him before, but somebody that wanted to leave Station 5, which is one of our slower stations, and especially somebody that wanted to go to Station 10, which is, it's an engine and tower. It's a double company house that houses our special operations unit, or our special operations team. And I thought, if this guy wants to leave 5 and he wants to come to 10, and he wants to do special ops, he's got to be all right. He's got to be good people. And I took Nate sight unseen, and he came to 10, and I never regretted that transfer or that decision. He came to Station 10, and with special operations, there's multiple disciplines you have to become certified in to be special ops qualified. And Nate knocked his SO quals down, pretty quick. And, some people, it takes years to knock down those certifications, and not Nate. He was up to speed and qualified, pretty quick. I can't remember exactly how long, but I remember when the email came out from the special ops battalion chief, that Nate was SO qualified. I congratulated him, and, I said, hey, you knocked this out in short order, and congratulations. And other than that, when I would go to Station 10, I was always two places I could find Nate. And my fondest memories of Nate were, he would either be in the engine bay, he'd have something torn apart, something torn out, putting it together, whatever. He was doing something technical, learning something, putting something, or he would be in the watch office on the computer. And when I would walk in that watch office, I could see immediately the screen that he had up, and it was always firefighter close calls, statter 911, fire engineering, firehouse, something. He was always engaged, and learning, honing his craft, practicing and polishing his trade. And, he'd look over his shoulder with a ball cap on, big grin. Hey, have you seen this one, Chief? Or, sometimes we'd stop and have an exchange about something. But unfortunately, I never had a lot of personal time with Nate, but I knew him professionally and knew that he was a fireman. And unfortunately, in his death, I learned that the one thing that was more important, and the one thing that he loved more than his profession, was his family. Excuse me. I've learned a lot about him, and Nate the husband and Nate the father, that I never had the privilege to learn otherwise. But he was a fireman, and he was a family man, that's the Nate that I knew, and that's what I want people to know about him. Like I said, he was good people, and he was dedicated to his family and dedicated to his profession.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Chief. Tell us a little bit about the day of the incident.
Day of the incident actually occurred in the early morning hours, as you said, of July 23rd, but we were working the 22nd. We work a 3-platoon system, 24-hour shifts. We were working Sunday, the 22nd, which was really, I don't remember a whole lot about the day. It was a typical day. Sundays are a little bit more relaxed. Usually, Engine 9, where my office was, Normally Sundays are a big breakfast day. But other than that, I don't remember a lot about Sunday, the 22nd. Just recently was talking to a now battalion chief that was a captain at the time. And Evan had been working a trade on the 22nd. He had traded with the captain there at Station 9. And Evan just told me a couple weeks ago that he remembers that evening. He remembers coming back to the battalion office, and he and my aide and myself going through some videos and talking strategy and tactics and size ups. And he was just telling me how he remembered that, just hours before this incident. And as I said, I'm glad he shared that with me, because I don't have many memories of that day, but it was a normal Maryland summer day, hot. And I went to bed at 11 o'clock that night. And it was normally my rule. My office stayed open until 11, and I went to bed. I was asleep when the call came in. And like I said, I don't remember too much more prior to the incident.
All right, tell us about what you personally experienced as the incident started unfolding.
When the tones dropped and woke me up, the funny little things you remember, little flip number clock radio on the stand there in the battalion office. I remember looking at it and seeing 153, and I'm listening to the dispatch, and I'm getting dressed, and it obviously was a 5-box, which Station 5's area is part of the 2nd Battalion. So at first I'm like, why am I running this? And then it dawned on me, we were under an AVL test, test of our AVL dispatch system. And Battalion 1 was closer to this incident than Battalion 2. So kind of squared that away and got out to the car. My aide was in the battalion car. I remember the door coming up, and wall of rain. And we had a little exchange. I didn't realize it was raining. I had slept right through the storm, but we got our running route straightened away between the two of us, and we started up the road. My normal routine, I was reading CAD comments on the MDT. I was starting my tactical worksheet, and noticed that the street was non-hydrant, but saw a swimming pool in the backyard. Knew that the engine from 5 had capabilities to access that pool with a hydraulic pump. Okay, had a water supply. There weren't hydrants on Woodscape, but they were out on Guilford Road, the cross street. So it was a relay away. Read the comments, smoke in the house after a lightning strike. Considered upgrading the assignment, but didn't know what else was going on in the county. I was over on a tactical channel. So I figured if the storm was widespread, might be other things going on. And it wasn't that far from Station 5's firehouse. So I knew they'd be on it pretty quick. So continued up the road, and 51 went on the scene with a large single family with smoke showing, and they requested to fill the box assignment, which upped us from a 2-in-1 assignment to a 4-in-3 assignment and some other resources. I jumped on the air real quick and made sure that 5 knew about the pool in the backyard, and that they could utilize that, access it for water supply. We pulled in. Brian gave me a great position, a great view, command view of the house. came through the gates and kind of broke into the yard and positioned. I had a real good view of the Alpha side. I could see the driveway went on around, so the garages and stuff were up on that Bravo side. I could see down Delta. I could see it terraced off on the Delta side, and units were starting to, get in position and go to work. I looked at, sized up the structure. I had smoke from pretty much all levels, so I had low smoke. That's what I expected to see. 51 gave me a return that they had met with the homeowner, and the homeowner reported smoke was in the basement, and they were going to make entry from the Charlie side. And Brian, my aide, as was always our practice, he had once he had parked the vehicle, he did the 360. That was our mode of operation throughout our department. He did the 360, and I continued to track units and start to set things up. Brian came back over the air with a report from the basement, from the rear, and he confirmed a walkout basement. He had smoke pretty much floor to ceiling in the basement. He had a number of doors and windows along the Charlie side. And 101 called out that they had a backup line. They were on side Charlie. They were 2 out, had a backup line. I verified with 56, the paramedic unit, that by order, they had the IRIC responsibilities, and checked on that. And so we'd requested more resources. I had advised, I had taken the command, and we were obviously in an offensive mode. We had a fire in the building, but we were getting things in place to deal with that. And other resources started checking up, and I had 51 came back and told me that they were having difficulty locating the fire. They were repositioning, but okay, they're around back. I got an engine and a special service. They're looking for it. Some other, like I said, resources started to arrive. I started to assign them. I was dealing with getting the secondary water set up, and Battalion 2 got there. Wanted to get him around back and get a trolley division set up. So I was making assignments, and 101 gave me a report that they now had visible fire from the first floor on the Charlie side. And I acknowledged that, told them, okay, get water on it. Can you get water on it from the exterior? I thought, okay, it's showing itself. Let's knock it down a little bit. Let's reset it and give ourselves a little more time. And 101 acknowledged that they could get water on the outside, but they were going to have to reposition. Okay, reposition. I was trying to get some more information out of them as to where they were. Tower 10 actually gave me some information, little update, that they had forced the basement in a non-destructive fashion, but they had closed it again so as not to create a flow path. And they were moving up to help 101, 51, and assigned a few more units, and the Mayday came out. And when the Mayday hit, just by voice recognition, I knew it was 101 officer. I understood Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Brian and I looked at each other, real quick, we didn't, neither of us really understood much more than Mayday, but answered the Mayday, trying to get a little more information. And then on the second vocal, we both were able to make out basement, fell. So immediately my thought was, wait a minute, we're operating in the basement. We're operating on a basement fire. We're in a basement. What could they have fallen into? And I even said, or I sent Brian at that point, I said, go find the homeowner, figure out, is there a wine cellar? Is there a squash court, a storage room, a fallout shelter? Is there any sub-level that they could have fallen into? And he went off to do that. I deployed the RIT, and actually the RIT was a truck company, but the engine that is housed with that truck, 71 and truck 7, sent them together, upgraded the RIT, and trying to get some more information. For a couple of minutes, we had reports of 2 other firefighters missing from 5's engine, and finally they got word back to me. The Charlie Division Battalion 2 said, hey, we've got 101's officer. It's the 101B. It's Firefighter Flynn that we're missing. And tried calling him on the radio and didn't get an answer. Unfortunately, Nate did hear me, and he had called his own Mayday, his what, where, and when Mayday. But unfortunately, because of the scan feature on our radios, I didn't hear Nate's Mayday. My comm center didn't hear Nate's Mayday. Nobody else on the fire ground. I had the Mayday from the officer, and we had the RIT deployed. Like I said, we had a couple other firefighters missing for a few minutes. And like I'm sure everybody experiences, it just seemed like eternity. And finally, RIT gave a return that they had Flynn and they were coming out. And I kind of perked up, enthused for a couple of seconds, thinking, okay, yeah, they got him on their way out. Once they got out, made sure I had a PAR on everybody, and we had EMS there ready for Nate. My safety officer, my safety captain, at one point, he came up to the window and he told me, he said, it's bad, but just keep doing what you're doing. And I kind of, snapped at him. What do you mean, do what I'm doing? And, he said, just keep everybody calm. Just keep doing what you're doing. And so I saw him transport Nate. Once we had a PAR on everybody, we transitioned to a defensive operation, and seemed like a long time, but next thing you know, the operations deputy was at my window, and good, long-standing, close personal friend. And he said, Chuck, he said, I got another battalion coming. Just hold on. When I get another battalion here, I'll transition command over, and you can get out of here and go to the hospital with 7 and 10. And a little bit later, had a battalion there. We transitioned, and I got out of the car and went to leave the scene. And Brian said to me, he said, "Hey, Nate's left the fire ground. Here's his pat tag. I figured it better go with you." And I took Nate's pat tag, and that kind of became my next focus, my next mission. I had accountability for Nate. He was my responsibility. Ops deputy told me, said, "Go to the hospital. Chief Rund is at the hospital. She's in charge. Report to Chief Rund." And so that's what I did. As soon as I got to the hospital, I had to find her, and I wanted her to know that we still, I didn't want anybody to think that his tag was anywhere other than where he was. In the very caring manner that she always had, she acknowledged that, that was the case. And at that point, I kind of finished my mission and kind of became part of our fire department had kind of taken over an entire wing of the emergency department. And, we were all just kind of huddled together. And at that point, I kind of transitioned from being the incident commander to just being a grieving firefighter. And that was what I experienced.
All right. Thank you, Chief. We got a couple pictures here. You can walk us through the pictures of the incident. Share them here. All right. You should have that up now. That's
Woodscape. As you said earlier, 8,400 square feet out in the Clarksville section of Howard County. This picture is taken from pretty much from the street at the driveway going in.
All right. And we talk about the vast size of the structure and some of the challenges in the side, Charlie.
Yeah, and to the left side of the screen is where that driveway was, or where those entry pillars were, and where the battalion car was positioned that night. And as you can see, I said I had a good view of the Alpha side, and as you can see, the Alpha side kind of goes on forever. But the driveway went up and around there. That was garage up on that where it's identified as side B. There was some storage and living space, so to speak, above the garage. And then actually the main house kind of started there where you see that white car, and kind of came down the screen toward the D side.
During the fire?
That was our apparatus positioning, as seen, I'm sure sometime the next morning. But you can see 51 all the way around. They had originally stopped there where Tower 10 is positioned. There was kind of an entryway between the main house and the garage, and that's 51 had stopped somewhere along in there initially. And then in order to access the pool, they moved all the way around back to the back of the driveway. Tower 10 and 101 there in the front circle. You can see where 71 is positioned is right where you can see those entry pillars, or that brick entryway. And then you can't really see, I think another photo will show the pool where the trees are in the lower right. There's your pool. That's the Charlie side. And then the short Delta side, you can see 5's hydraulic pump there in the swimming pool. And actually, there was immediately after the RIT team got Nate out. You can see in this picture, there's an elevated deck. You can see some people operating up there on the deck. And actually, just after Nate came out, there were two other injuries. There was a firefighter that fell through those steps there on that deck. And another firefighter, I forget what his injury was, but we were dealing with a couple of injuries and so forth immediately after that. And again, to the right of this screen is where 51 was positioned, where that white car was in earlier pictures. It sloped up. The grade changed about there where that little bump out is, that little octagon bump out. That's where the grade changed and went up to the upper level.
All righty. Thanks. All right. It's been a little over 2 years since the incident. What do you want today's firefighters to know about the incident? What lessons do you want them to learn?
You know, the two things that that I would say to anybody, firefighter or officer, is that everybody is willing to train on the fun stuff, train on the, the exciting stuff. But I would encourage firefighters and officers to train on the stuff that you don't want to train on. Train on the stuff that isn't the high profile, isn't the glitz and the glamour, isn't the, as an incident commander, as an officer, you don't want to hear a mayday. But as much as firefighters may practice how they will call a mayday, officers, incident commanders need to practice how they're going to answer a mayday, how they're going to react to a mayday. And it's, a plethora of other little things that you may not, how your radio works, or how you have things in your gear, how your BA, functions, and how it malfunctions, and not just pulling lines and searching and throwing ladders, but it's those little things and those things that you don't want to train on that you need to train on. And the other thing that I learned about Nate after this was that he wasn't just a fireman every third day. And as much as he loved his family, there was still, his wife Celeste has shared with me that, she knew about the fire service. She knew about how he did his job because she saw him practice at home. She saw him, reviewing NIOSH reports, or listening to Mayday incidents, or calling his own Mayday. There were those things that he continued, even the days he wasn't working, to hone his skills. And believe me, there's such a value in the separation. You need, when you go home, there needs to be home. There needs to be, a place where you can let yourself relax. I'm not saying you have to eat, sleep, and breathe every moment of the fire service, but each day you do have to commit yourself to learning something, to improving on something. I at the end, I know we're gonna share a video at the end of Celeste Flynn, and she puts it much better than I could. But I would advise, or I would I would say, we all need to have that commitment. We all need to have that drive to learn something every day and learn those things and practice those things that aren't fun to practice.
What can you tell us about some changes that Howard County Fire and Rescue may have made based on the results of this incident?
Well, first and foremost, within days and maybe even within hours, our fire chief had appointed a incident safety review board, and that board made up of a representative from each rank, from firefighter through assistant chief, and then a number of subject matter experts from outside our department, from other departments in our region. They were tasked with studying, investigating, leaving no stone unturned as to how our department could change and improve. And the ISRB produced a tremendous document. And I know, I think we'll make that link available here later. But our NIOSH report has not been released, but our ISRB report has been. And I would encourage anybody, what I've shared here today is only just the brief recollections of the incident compared to what the ISRB report documents. So that was a year in the making. There have been some of the recommendations the ISRB made. There have been some changes, but still a lot in process. 101, Nate's engine at the time was only a 3-person engine company. We had 3 of our engine companies that were only staffed with 3. We have since, those 3 engines have all been upstaffed to 4 to match everything else. We have another level of command response in, we have a 3rd battalion chief now that, although not 24 hours yet, it is 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Orders there, I know that there's a number of our operational orders that are under review and being rewritten. And of course, like everything, the pandemic has complicated a lot of things and slowed progress down in many things. But I know those order changes are forthcoming. We did, I said earlier that this assignment, a local box, was at the time 2 engines and a special. That was recently upgraded to 3 engines and a special. And again, part of that being the response to woodscape, and knowing that with 2 engines for basic operations, that 3rd engine gives you the capability for a RIC, or it gives you the capability for water supply, but it was added, and that was a good positive change. Just recently, our fire chief has brought on one of our retired chief officers to specifically do nothing but oversee the recommendations and the response to those recommendations from our ISRB report. And knowing that individual, just a great choice, and to have someone focused on strictly tracking and engineering and facilitating those changes. That'll be a great catalyst for change and improvement and recovery as this next year unfolds. But like I said, I'm sure if you asked 500 members of our department, you'd probably get 500 answers. But I do believe that there have been changes implemented, and I believe there will be, many more to come as we move forward.
A couple questions came up specific to that. The first one, you mentioned you maintained command for a while after a significant incident. Is there any change in policy on, is there a plan to relieve that incident commander in a quicker manner now?
No, not that I'm aware of. That night, as I said, it was the ops deputy that got to me first. That was the first level of our senior staff that got to the scene. And I believe we have an on-call assistant chief that as soon as a working incident is declared, the on-call assistant is monitoring and potentially responding. That night, the assistant chief did check up pretty early, but was directed to the hospital where Nate was en route to, as opposed to the incident scene. I don't know of any move to change that, but it was very clearly that night. The ops deputy, Chief Merson, he knew that he needed to let me be with the troops and get to the hospital. As soon as he got a staff chief, we called for a tactical pause, and we did that transition. It was rather smooth. I handed my tactical worksheet over to the battalion relieving me, and I left the fire ground, and it continued on into the morning hours. I don't know how it could have been improved upon, but that was how we implemented it that night.
Okay. And there was a question on you mentioned the third BC coming on, just generally the impact of that on the fire ground to the structure and that kind of stuff. What would that add for you?
Currently, we are only 2 battalions. We had the 3rd Battalion had been put in service during the daytime, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, out in the westernmost part of our county, which was actually the 2nd Battalion was very large. And span of control for for Battalion 2 was really out of kilter in that they had exceeded their span of control with the companies that we had out there. With having that 7-day-a-week, 12-hour, another command officer, it allows us, whenever we had a working incident, we had both battalions that were working on the incident scene. Now with the 3rd Battalion, again, 12 hours a day, and hopefully in the near future, 24 hours a day, that allows for one more level of command officer, either to cover the rest of the county and provide service in the rest of the county during a working incident, or in a complex incident, it gives me, one more level. It gives the battalion one more level of chief officer to help manage the incident. So it was something that we hadn't, for years we had been 2 battalions only. As I described where Battalion 3 is, it reminded me another really big change that has occurred since the Woodscape incident is that in addition to the 3 engines being staffed with 4, we actually, the two stations on our westernmost border, they are volunteer stations that we had some semblance of career staffing in. But within the last 2 years, both of those stations are now staffed 24/7 with a full complement of 6 personnel a day, and still volunteer support. But that just the staffing on our western side, that portion of Battalion 2 has greatly increased. Was that a direct result of Woodscape? No, I can't say that, but it is certainly a change, a positive change, and a positive addition in staffing, for our department in the 2 years since Woodscape.
Excellent. Thank you. Tell us a little about what you experienced personally in the aftermath.
I've referred multiple times to the battalion car, and it's just the way I refer to it. But our battalion vehicle is a crew cab pickup truck. So plenty, you've got room, and that was my office. That's very much where I was used to operating. And that night, that cab just became cavernous. The separation, again, for thinking back to the picture that you had up earlier, being on the alpha side, not being able to see, strictly going on the feedback I was getting over the radio, the separation and from the troops, from the operation, was just daunting. And that feeling on the scene of, just being alone and being there, just separated, that kind of rolled into in the next couple of hours and the next couple of days post incident, just became isolation. And I know it wasn't intended to be isolation, but things were moving so fast, and things were there was an IMT established for the funeral, and there was things, the ISRB was assigned. There were things moving in our department that normally I probably would have been one of those people assisting with that or assigned some of those tasks. But because I was the incident commander, I felt separated. I went home. So this incident happened in the early morning hours. I was probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon before I finally got home. And over that next day, day and a half, I had a lot of people checking on me, but as far as the department, the operations and the moving forward, I was kind of isolated. I didn't even know whether I was supposed to go back to work Wednesday or not. 3 platoon system, we'd worked a Sunday, we were due to go back Wednesday. Tuesday afternoon, my best friend checking on me, and he was a captain in the system. And I said, Kevin, I don't even know do I go back to work tomorrow? Am I on administrative leave? What do I do? And he said, well, we'll find out. And within a couple minutes, the ops deputy again called me and, said, hey, what do you want to do, Chuck? If you need time off, say so. If you want to come back to work, we want you back at work. But I had to ask that question. There wasn't, everything was moving Mach 9, and as the incident commander, I was kind of isolated from it. And that was a difficult thing for me to try to process, because that isn't normally how I would be. And probably the biggest thing that I experienced was just this sense of failure. And not just of the mission, but more so my responsibility to Nate and my responsibility to his family. And growing up a baby boomer, you grew up with World War II movies and Vietnam movies, and I always had this sense of responsibility that the officer always had to write the letter. The officer always had to tell the family what how much they thought of their loss, or I felt as an officer from the time I became a sergeant that if any of my people were hurt, it was my responsibility, my duty to go to their family. And looking back, that was, whether that was naivety or not, but I was still on the incident scene when our fire chief and our chaplain and our county executive were going to make notification to Nate's wife. And, in those first couple of days, again, everything was spinning so fast. I never had a chance to fulfill that self-assigned duty, responsibility. And it was, that was what really haunted me, so to speak, was, the fact that, I had failed at bringing Nate home, and I had failed at, going to his wife and telling her, and it was, that was a big part of what I experienced the first couple of months and days after the incident.
You mentioned going back to work as a battalion chief. How do you regain your confidence to command in an incident after you experience something like this?
Well, one thing, and as you said earlier in my bio, I retired in October of 18. So and that was a planned, scheduled thing. But for 2 months, I did have to regain my confidence. I did have to get back on the horse and ride again. And there's a number of people and things that were done for me to help me get back in that saddle again. And first, that day, that first shift back, when Chief Merson told me, he said, "Hey, if you want to come back, we want you back." And I felt that that's where I needed to be. I knew everybody was hurting, but in order to lead by example, I felt I needed to be back in my position on Wednesday. And I told him that, but I said, "Chief, I don't I want to be back. I think I should be back, but in all honesty, I don't know what I'm going to feel when I pull up in front of the next house on fire. And could you engineer a safety net for me and for my people? And I said, could you have another battalion, another chief officer just have my back? And that Wednesday morning, as I was on my way to work, he called me and he said, hey, Chief Hardesty has your back today. He was one of the staff chiefs, the special operations chief. He lived in the county, and he said, hey, Steve knows what you need and he'll be there for you. And middle of the day, the first box that we ran that first day back, things were starting to fall into place. And I looked up across the parking lot and I saw his vehicle kind of quietly come in the parking lot and position over to my right. And, I knew that, he had my back. And if I suddenly couldn't do something, he was there to, take care of my people. And I tremendous debt of thanks to both Chief Merson and Chief Hardesty for engineering that. The other thing was of course, my shift, that night, as early as when we got out to the road on the way to the hospital, and I had some of my officers and firefighters encouraging me, telling me that they valued me, they respected me, and they wanted me back at work. I tremendous boost when those people reached out in a variety of ways. The other thing that I didn't plan on or didn't ask for, that first day back, there was a peer support team member from our neighbor to the south, Prince George's County, Maryland. PG had sent a number of peer support team members, and one of them was assigned specifically to my office for myself and Brian, my aide. And that first morning back, phone rang just about 7 o'clock, and it was the lieutenant from Tower 10. And he said, hey, Chief, if it's okay with you, we want to go back up to the scene this morning. We've already talked to the fire marshal and they're okay with it. And if you're okay with it, we'd like to go back up there and we'd like you to go with us. And I told him, absolutely, you can go, and I'll see what I can do to get over there myself. And got off the phone and I looked at Brian, my aide, and I said, hey, 10 wants to go back up to the scene this morning and they want us to go with them. How do you feel about that? And Brian and I both were kind of, I'm not sure. Not sure if I'm, how I feel about that. And as we discussed it, at that point, a total stranger, this peer support team member, George, he said, hey, Chief, could I make a suggestion? Sure, George, anything. And he said, hey, why don't you go on over now and ahead of your guys and just go over and kind of take it in slowly and see if it's something that you're okay with. And if it is, you can be there with your guys. If not, you can come on back. And great advice. And he stuck with me the entire time. We went over, and I was glad that we did. I was glad that George encouraged me to do that. And we spent a good part of the day over there with the companies, walking through, rotating through, sharing just some encouragement. And that day was tremendous for helping me to regain confidence. And then throughout, George was there then, but the peer support that I received was just invaluable in getting me back in the saddle and keeping me in the saddle for those last 2 months.
You mentioned the peer support to you. One of the questions we had was, what kind of peer support was provided to the department as a whole? Same type of stuff, or? Yes,
our peer support team from the very beginning. Of course, we're so many of our resources from peer support had been affected, and we're now the recipients of that support. But because of the robust team that our peer support group was, and their connections with other jurisdictions, we had multiple resources. And I know, that day, I had a peer support team member from somewhere in every one of our stations. When A shift, when we came back to work that Wednesday, we had peer support in every station. Like I said, George had been assigned specifically to Battalion 1 for Brian and I. And then that continued when the ISRB and NIOSH were conducting their interviews. Peer support was provided to those members that were being interviewed or were having to tell their stories, recall their participation in the incident, and naturally any of the memorials. So peer support was throughout, and I know I'm not the only one that will sing the praises of what individual peer support team members did for me, as for others.
Excellent. Thank you. What kind of advice would you give to officers and firefighters who may have to deal with the loss of one of their own?
Probably the earliest and the best advice I got, and what I would share with anybody about, I guess we were maybe 12 hours post-incident. I was on my way home that afternoon, and my phone rang, and it was a number that wasn't in my phone, but given the circumstances, I answered it. And a voice that was familiar to me said, "Chuck, this is Matt Tobia." And he said, "I got your number, and I just wanted to reach out. I'm so sorry for what's happened. But," he said, "we're going to get through this." He said, "You just have to breathe." And as simple as that advice may sound, Matt said, "Chuck, the one thing you've got to do that nobody else can do for you is take one breath and let it lead into the next. Just keep breathing. Other things are going to fall into place, but we're going to get through this. It's going to be tough, but we're going to get through this one breath at a time." And I have thanked Chief Tobia many times since then for that advice, because that did make, it gave me something to focus on. And I realized that, hey, other stuff is happening. I've just got to keep breathing. And of course, if you keep breathing, then that leads into, you need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to stay hydrated, and all those basic functions that just were a blur those first couple of days were all a result of Chief Tobia's advice. So I would say to anyone that finds themselves in this experience, you got to breathe and take care of yourself and just keep yourself moving. But the other important thing that Chief Tobia did for me with that phone call, he set me up for the next piece of advice. And he said, Chuck, he said, this is my number. It's on 24/7. Please, if there's anything else I can do for you, you call me. And I thanked him. And the next day, about 36 hours post-incident, I'm home. Again, I'm feeling that isolation. My phone is blowing up. People are checking on me. People are offering to listen. They're offering to talk. And just a tremendous amount of love outpoured to me. But the one thing I wanted, the one thing I felt I needed was to talk to somebody that had walked this road. As close as I was to some of the people that were, again, very lovingly offering to help me, I just didn't feel like anybody else understood where I was. So I called Chief Tobia, and I said, hey, Chief, you said you could help. Can you connect me with somebody that has walked this road? Everybody wants to help me, but I just don't feel like anybody else understands. He said, Chuck, you sit tight. About 20 minutes, 30 minutes goes by, and my phone lights up again, another strange number. It's a text. And I looked at it, and it said, Chuck, this is Billy Goldfelder. Sorry for your loss. And this is my number. Call me anytime. But in just a little while, you're going to get a phone call from Chief Randy McGregor, Bryan, Texas. He had a double line of duty in 2013. And of course, I knew, who doesn't know who Billy Goldfelder is? But I didn't know him personally. The fact that, he texted me and he facilitated connecting me to Chief McGregor was absolutely huge. And the message that I share with that is that I wasn't alone, and you aren't alone if you're going through this. May feel that way, but our fire service, when the chips are down, can be a very small world and a very tight-knit world. And my phone lit up in just a little bit, and Chief McGregor said, hey, Chuck, how can I help you? And we found out very early on that we shared a common faith. And when he was able to just share with me how he had felt and maybe how I might feel and how he had dealt with the memorial, and we talked that day, we prayed together on the phone. he was a tremendous, tremendous encourager and picked me up. And he didn't let me be alone. We continued to talk and text throughout the next couple of weeks. The morning of the funeral, he called me, and I knew he was in my corner, and I knew any question I had, I could reach out to him anytime. So all that being said, breathe and just know that you're not alone, and you don't have to walk alone. And it helps when you know that you're not alone.
Excellent, thank you. And I'd just like to thank you personally for taking that experience and really turning it into a huge positive with this IC to IC program. Chief Ridley has been a huge portion of this, like I mentioned at the beginning, and taking his experience to make sure others don't have to go through this, the part he did. So, and we'll talk a little bit about more access to the program at the end. At this point, I'd like to thank Firefighter Nate Flynn's wife, Celeste. She is actually on the call with us, has been on the call with us to start with. One of the things we do when we do these programs is ask someone to reach out to the family, because this is not something we want to surprise anybody with. And so Chief Ridley reached out to her, and she was just a huge supporter of this program, of getting this message out to the fire service to truly benefit on a number of different levels. And Celeste, we truly appreciate your dedication to this and getting this out. We have a post I want to show you. There are some training days in honor of Firefighter Nate Flynn, and Celeste did a post here on those training days. And even more important, she understands the culture of the fire service and gets through a little bit to what our job is and what the culture should be. So,
the valuable investment of your time, and choose to keep this date on your training calendar year after year. I am Celeste Flynn. Nate was my husband and the father to our 3 young children, Tegan, Connor, and Brecken, as well as stepfather to my sons, Alex and Gavin. Nate died line of duty on July 23rd, 2018, after falling through the floor during an active basement fire. The idea for this training day started as we approached the 1-year anniversary last year, and as a way to somehow control the feelings that we all had about that date. As you can imagine, July 23rd was a life-altering day for me and the kids. It was a day that we shifted from fire service family to fire service survivors. I changed from fire wife to fire widow. Our lives went from being relatively private and shared with only our close circle of friends and family to being very public as we grieved alongside the department and many in the state and region. I had so many questions of my own and struggled to help the kids understand all that had happened while trying to hold it all together for the viewing and for the funeral. I haven't told many people this, but I spent the first few nights awake, listening to the fireground audio over and over, listening to the Mayday, trying to understand what went wrong and when. It probably wasn't the healthiest use of my time at that moment, but for some reason it felt like the right thing to do. I'd watched Nate listen to audio over the years and study many Mayday calls. I knew for a fact that he would have been glued to his own trying to understand it. After the funeral, I asked to visit the scene. I needed to see the house and be able to appreciate the sheer size and scale of the operations that night. I needed to put a visual to the audio that I'd spent so many hours studying. I walked through what was left of that house, retracing as many of Nate's last steps as I could. It was tough, I'm not going to lie, but I knew I had to do it. And I say it was tough for me, but I know it was also tough for everyone there. I don't think they knew what to do with me and my list of questions. And I'm sure walking me through Woodscape, the rubble there that day, was the last thing Captain Matthews thought he'd be doing when he showed up for work that week. But he did it, and he and the rest of the team there with me that day patiently answered all of my questions. When I think back to that day now, I can clearly see how pivotal it was in getting us to where we are now and in kicking off the 2nd annual training day. So while the actual plan for this program didn't start until last spring, the energy and the foundation behind this program really began that day in what was left of Woodscape. We all left that day with a different level of trust, respect, understanding, as well as the knowledge that we were committed to working together and communicating and collaborating as much as we could to do the best work possible for Nate. That all grew into a plan to turn July 23rd into something positive to honor the way Nate lived instead of just remembering that he was gone. Last year's training occurred just after the ISRB report was released. I shared with the group my feelings on 6 critical minutes in the timeline published in that report. These were the 6 minutes that passed from the point that Nate fell through the floor to the point that his air pack data showed significantly reduced respirations and no more movement. Lieutenant Burchick will share some views and data on air consumption in his material today. And while you're looking at that, I want you to know that Nate still had air in his tank. Nate also kept his mask on and sealed to his face. The discipline and willpower he showed in the final 6 minutes of his life will continue to amaze me. Last year, I asked all of you to think about those 6 minutes on a daily basis and how those 6 minutes changed Nate's life, his family's life, and the lives of so many others in the department. I also challenge you to find 6 minutes each day to do something to make you or your crew smarter, stronger, or more disciplined. And I hope that you took those 6 minutes as seriously as Nate did. And if you did, then I hope you feel good with the almost 40 extra hours that you invested in yourself or your craft over this last year. And I wish I could give you some kind of certificate or card for those hours, but I can't. So all I can do is offer my thanks for any number of the 6 minutes that you put in and for taking my challenge seriously. After all, you don't have to listen to me. I'm not qualified to tell you anything about the fire service or teach you anything about the fire service. I'm not a firefighter and I'm not a trainer. I'm just a fire widow. I'm someone that's been handed more than her fair share of folded flags. Someone that will never be able to hear Amazing Grace on bagpipes and not choke up. Someone that's way too familiar with ATF, NIOSH, CSST, ISRB, and far too many acronyms. I'm someone that got to unpack evidence bags with her husband's smoky t-shirt, socks, and underwear inside. I'm also someone that has her husband's charred helmet tucked away in a box in her closet. I'm someone that's helped her kids trace her daddy's name from a granite wall, and someone that's had to answer many questions about how or why daddy died. But I know that all of that fire widow experience makes me extremely qualified to be someone that doesn't want to see your name next to Nate's on any memorial wall. I don't want to see your spouse in my shoes. I'm someone that wants to keep the promise I made to my kids that we would do whatever we could to make sure other daddies and mommies go home safe. And that makes me someone that needs to promote and support training and knowledge as much, if not more, as a fire widow, as I did as a fire wife. Now, I'm not naive enough to believe that one class or one program or even 40 hours worth of 6 minutes are going to stop line of duty deaths. I'm just optimistic enough to hope that the work this team does and what you get out of the program stays with you and motivates you to keep your skills sharp and to go out and share your knowledge. A few weeks ago, I watched Alice in Wonderland with Tegan. And near the end of the movie, the caterpillar character Absalom says to Alice as she's crying,
"Nothing is accomplished with tears."
Nothing was ever accomplished with tears. So when Tegan hears this, she pauses the movie and turns to me and says, "That's us, Mommy, right? Just like you always tell us, it's okay to be sad, but it's not okay to stay sad." that we shouldn't just cry about a problem, that we should do something to make it better. Now, I'm sure I never said those exact words to the kids. I'm sure I said something more like, don't pout, work it out. But nevertheless, she gets it. And this training program is part of that something for me and for us. And when I hear that over 400 or 500 people, or whatever the final number ends up being for today, are registered for this class, it makes me feel like we are accomplishing something big. And I know that we have to be making some of it better. I'll close by saying that while all of the memorials and engraved walls and bricks are beautiful, and I know that Nate would appreciate them all because of the strong love that he had for the honor and tradition and brotherhood that is part of the fire service, I am absolutely certain that he would be most proud and feel the most honor knowing that this training program exists and that you are all here today to take part of it. My continued gratitude goes out to the team that's behind all of this, and my thanks for those of you in attendance. We'll see you next year.
Bye.
Bye. Second annual Nate Flynn Fireground Day.
Very powerful message, Celeste. Thank you very much for sharing with us and allow us to show that during this, and your willingness to allow Chief Ridgely to share all this information. Going to be very well received. In fact, just going through some comments that are coming through, both to you, Celeste, for allowing this and being such a supporter of getting this message across. And Chief Ridgely, quite a bit of taking the courage to share this so others can learn from this. So both of y'all, thank you very much. Chief Ridgely, one last question. Is there anything else you'd like to add or share with us?
Yes. You opened this up talking about the foundation and the programs and specifically the IC to IC program. And I can't thank the foundation and the individuals, my peers, truly my brothers and sisters in the IC to IC group. From the moment that I walked into that group in Denver, 11 months after Nate's death, I was the newest, the juniorist, the most recent line of duty incident commander in that group. But from the first minute until now, just the support and the relationships and just phenomenally important to me, and in my recovery, from this, and I would say to yes, you asked me earlier about advice to officers or firefighters that might deal with the loss of one of their own. Unfortunately, there's a large group out there that aren't represented in the IC to IC group currently. There have been a large group of incident commanders that have lost firefighters in the line of duty. And I'm afraid that some of them may still be suffering in silence or carrying this burden alone. And I just want to encourage anyone that views this today or at any time in the future. The foundation is here for you. The group is here for you. There is now a hotline number that very quickly we can get you connected to somebody. And as I shared about, I was just so lucky and blessed that Chief Tobia and Chief Goldfelder were able to connect me to someone that could help me. And if you are out there, if you are carrying this, you're not alone, and there is help. And I know that any one of us would be glad to be there for you and with you. So thank you, Chief Bennett, for facilitating not just today, but this entire journey, this entire group. And I thank you to the foundation, and thank you again to all of my brothers and sisters. I love you. Thank you.
Chief, thank you very much, and I truly appreciate not only working this program, but sharing your story today. Very powerful. So, as Chief Ridley mentioned, if you go to firehero.org, all of our programs are listed on there. IC program, the Chief to Chief. We're currently developing of the company officer. That's not quite there. The pandemic slowed that down. We're getting ready to meet on that. But as far as Chief to Chief, IC to IC, or really if you need help with anything with this, we can match you up with somebody to help you. You can go there. Has my contact information on there. It has a form you can fill out. Use whatever means you want, and we'll get you the assistance you need. So one of the programs I'd also like to mention real quick here, and I'll share this with you. We just released this. One of the programs that the incident commander cohort developed was an educational portion. And there's basically twofold. The main purpose is a proactive response. This is for incident commanders to learn what might happen in case of a line of duty death or serious injury. What the things they may go through, media aspects, investigative aspects, the family, behavioral health aspects, those types of things. And it's a Fire Hero Learning Network, FHLN.net. You can go to that and you sign in. It's completely free. There's about 9-10 different programs on it. This is one of them. And it's about an hour-long program, and it has 4 incident commanders speaking about what personally happened to them, and then the information that goes with it. An outstanding program, literally just been released within the last several weeks. So encourage you to go to the Fire Hero Learning Network and take a look at that. And go to firehero.org and take a look at the rest of our programs. So we'll be back again the 4th Thursday of September. And we'll be talking with Assistant Chief Rob Wilkins of the Philadelphia Fire Department with the fatality they had up in there several years ago. So thank you for everybody's participation in this. Celeste, thank you very much again. Chief Ridley, thank you. And I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks again. Have a great day. See you.